do want to acknowledge, before we begin, the presence of Ophir Lahavi, who is here representing the Consul General of Israel in New York. Ms. Lahavi, please stand up. Is the Consulate's Director of Community Relations. Welcome. And I do want to say that I am enormously moved to have a group of alumni back here this evening. Because after all, this is what this evening is really all about. May I ask all of our graduates who are here this evening to stand? More meaningful than that. This is the third year that parents in the Abraham Joshua Heschel School have organized a HaShoah commemoration. These have always been family events involving, in both the planning and program, members of our own community, including grandparents and parents. These are important events for our community. They are symbolic of loss within our family on the one hand, but they are also poignant occasions that mark the triumph of spirit and determination and of our redemption. Most of all, these are occasions of transmission, of personal experiences, and of the values that define us as a people. Transmission to assure our survival, even against seemingly impossible forces of history. The school is indebted to the Committee of Parents and Faculty who have led this effort since the beginning. They are listed on the back cover of this evening's program. I would like to ask the many members of the committee to stand, please. Members of this committee, please stand, please. The least you could do, the people who need to know you have played a very important role in It's been an incredibly important committee. I know that on those few occasions that I have been able to attend, these are meetings that really almost find it impossible to leave. The agenda goes off in all different directions and has taken us to a very, very new level in our understanding of the Holocaust. Leading the committee from the outset has been Dina Rosenfeld. I'd like to just say a word about Dina Rosenfeld, and then please, I will ask you to report. But Dina is a former member of the board, has with incredible wisdom, insight, and integrity led this committee. She has nurtured it in a way that I think is absolutely admirable. And Dina, we are indebted to you. This has not been an easy committee for many, many reasons to lead. And we want to thank you and express our sincere appreciation. Now I will ask you please to join me to
Thank you very much. I'd like to begin the formal part of the program by first asking the children to light the Yizkor lamp, which is right here. And the children are the Moser children, Rachel, Addison, Michelle, and Stephen. If you could come up and light your lamp. Just before moving on, I would also like to thank the committee, who I think has been a wonderful committee to work with, and especially I would like to thank Bob Menken for all of his help and all of his guidance in the committee and in this event. I would also like to thank Sarah Bierman Eldamfound for Holocaust Studies for helping to underwrite this evening's program, and the children's art exhibition will be beginning later in the other room. This evening marks a departure from the program of our first 2 years. Those programs focused on the first-hand accounts of members of our family. Latka Mead and Rabbi Judah Nagich 2 years ago. Last year, Elizabeth Sifron and Fred Turner. But with the growth of our school and the maturing of our own family, the time has come for us to complement these first-hand accounts with the responsibility we, the children, and our children have to keep the bright and clear the flame of memory and the lessons of history. There's nothing more authentically Jewish than our responsibility to see ourselves as if we personally were liberated and to tell the story of our liberation to all generations to come. And current events are testament to a world in desperate need of our memory and our story. And before introducing our speakers, for many of you who are new to coming to us and observing this, you saw the slides that were here earlier, and you saw the many writings on the wall. And hopefully all of you will have a chance, if you didn't before, to look at it afterwards. And I think that this way you get a small taste of what our children have experienced in the commemoration of Yom Shoah for many years now, under the guidance of Peter Geffen. And there have been various changes that have occurred. These slides that used to be slides of the world before the Holocaust are now our families before the Holocaust. And now each one of those slides is a member or an extended member of the HaShoah family, because we have all contributed on the committee our own slides of our own pictures of our families that now represent that. The back, where we have all those, well, it's a little bit sort of similar, almost reminds me of the kids who have gone off to Israel yesterday. They took with them the notes of the community. So these are the notes of Holocaust commemoration of our community. And it's listing various members of our families that have been killed and communities that do not exist anymore. And to me, I guess the most moving part of looking at those lists or looking at those names is that you see the names of kids in your class, or you see suddenly names of kids of your kids' friends, because those names live again in our school. So I think that's especially moving in terms of that particular wall. And by the way, I don't have any problems with crying publicly, so in case you're worried about the breaking of my voice, because I think that's really extremely moving. And that part of the wall, you have kids talking to their grandparents or talking to their great-grandparents and really sort of reaching out and having their own reactions to what this day is about. So as you can see, this has become sort of a room that's both a commemoration of the Holocaust and at the same time a very personal extension of who we are as a HaShoah family, because everybody on that wall is really part of us. So I think it has really been a real enrichment for the community. So I would like to introduce, in this spirit of the extension of the HaShoah family, Lita Ungar Moser, to begin the evening's program. Lita and Nathan have been HaShoah parents since 1991, and Lita has been a member of our Holocaust Commemoration Committee from the very beginning. And part of the dedication of being part of that committee is that she has also brought to us her family to become ours tonight. Lita.
Good evening. I would like to thank Dina Rosenfeld, Bob Kermenkin, and those responsible for inviting members of my family and me to address you this evening. It is an honor to be here, not only as the daughter of a Holocaust survivor, but also as a parent of 3 students in this school, as well as a graduate. Although both my parents are unique and extraordinary, tonight I will understandably focus on my father, since he is a survivor of the Holocaust. My father is from Krasnov, Poland. He is the sole survivor of his village, which included 60 members of his family who tragically perished. He arrived in this country with his meager possessions in this treasured suitcase, not knowing the English language. Not only did my father begin a new life here, but he did so without anger, resentment, or bitterness. He maintained his faith in God and mankind despite his personal, tragic loss. My father believes and taught us from Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the fathers, Al Shlosha Devarim Ha'olam Omed, Al HaTorah, V'al HaAvodah, V'al Gemilut Chasadim. On three things the world stands, on Torah, on work, and on good deeds. Based on that precept is how my father still lives today. He is a learned man, a scholar, hardworking, and most generous. I am fortunate to have grown up in a loving home. My three sisters and I were, and still are, very close. Being the daughter of a survivor, I knew that I was different from my peers. My sisters and I were brought up with a strong sense of family. We were and are very close to our relatives, yet painfully aware of the absence of so many of them, like grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins. We always treated my father with unusual respect, which he so well deserved. Although we knew of the Holocaust at a young age, we did not know the cruelties of the Nazis because my father protected us from such nightmares, and in turn we protected my father. It was understood that since my father had suffered in the Holocaust, we should protect him and not cause him any undue hardship or pain. Growing up, I was known as one of the Ungars, or the Ungar's daughter, and I always knew that that was something of which I would always be proud. My parents instilled in us a love for Judaism and a devotion to the family that still exists today. It was always understood that we four daughters would provide our children with the knowledge that it is our and their obligation to remember the victims of the Holocaust and to transmit this from door to door, generation to generation. Being second generation means we have a responsibility not only to our father, but also to those who perished in the Holocaust. We must learn about how they lived, not only how they died, and pass this down through generations to keep their memories alive. Through Jewish education and remembrances such as these, the horrors of the Holocaust will always be remembered, the victims never forgotten, and the survivors honored. It is indeed an honor to introduce to you a man I deeply respect, admire, and love, my father, William Ungar.
Thank you, Rita, for this lovely introduction. And it's a great pleasure to see my four daughters here tonight at this gathering, together with their grandchildren. And I would like to share with you the information that the older daughter is for the last 15 years in Israel, made Aliyah. The second daughter, Joan, have 5 children, attend the Salomon Schechter School in Westchester. The third daughter, Denise, her 5 children, attend Salomon Schechter School in Nassau, Jericho, and of course, Rita's 4 children attend the school at the HaShoah school here. And now about myself. Whenever I think about the Holocaust, a question comes to my mind and continuously search for an answer. Was it luck, destiny, or a creed from heaven that I remained alive and 60 members of my family perished during the Holocaust? I pondered on this question for many sleepless nights without arriving an answer. Today, after 54 years having been liberated by the Red Army, the past still occupies my thoughts and dreams. Let me take you back in time. On December 1st, 1939, Germany attacked Poland. The major cities were bombed at the same day, including Lwów, one of the largest cities in Poland. On that day, I was with a Polish field artillery unit at the railroad station, ready to leave for the west, where the ground fighting already begun. As the bombs fell, several members of our unit were killed, many wounded. The rest of us left the station unarmed. It was my first introduction to the horrors of the war. After several days, we reached an area near Gostinin on the east side of the Vistula River. There we camped in a near forest until September the 13th. On this day, which is indelibly impressed in my memory, I volunteered to join a team to deliver ammunition to the front line. On our way, we were attacked by German planes. I was severely wounded and suffered a broken ankle and damaged ribs. I was brought to the hospital in Gostinin, where I remained as a war prisoner until middle of December 1939. The fact that I was wounded proved to be a blessing for me. In mid-December, the Germans began to select the capable men to send them to war prison camps, segregating the Jews from the Gentiles. The wounded were released to return to their homes. I left the hospital on crutches and headed homeward. At the end of December 1939, after many unpredictable difficulties, I reached my home, located in Krosny, a village in the southeastern Poland. By that time, my home and the entire eastern area was occupied by the Soviet Union in accordance with the agreement between Ribbentrop and Molotov. Namely, accordingly, Germany attacked Poland September 1st, 1939 on the west side, and the Russian attacked Poland September 17th from the east. During that winter, I remained at home with my family while I was recuperating. At springtime, I contacted the technical high school in Lvov and returned to my pre-war position as an instructor teacher. Little did I know in June of 1940, when I said goodbye to my dear ones, that this would be the last time that we would embrace and that we would never see each other again. The school year 1940-41 ended abruptly when on June 21st, 1941, the Germans attacked Russia. On July 1st, the Germans triumphantly marched into Lvov. The Ukrainians greeted them enthusiastically with flowers and shouts, "Heil Hitler!" But for the Jews, a bleak chapter began. Lvov had been a Jewish cultural center for many centuries. It had about 100,000 Jews before the war, in a city with a population of 300,000. After entering Lvov, the Germans gave a free hand to the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians rounded up between 3,000 and 4,000 Jews. They brought them to a prison camp where they were massacred. At the end of July, the Germans announced that all Jews of the age of 12 and older would have to wear a white armband with the blue Star of David. Anyone over 14 years old would have to register to work. The entire city was divided in 3 regions. The best region was assigned to the Germans and their families. The second region was for Aryans, Poles, Ukrainians. The third and worst of the 3 for the Jews. The Jews were given 48 hours to move out of their homes and to move into the third region. The Germans ordered a Judenrat and the Jewish auxiliary police to be established and requested a ransom of 10 million ruble, approximately $5 million. People brought their jewelry, forecoats, silverware, and many valuable in the hope that the ransom would spare their lives. But this was just the beginning of a diabolic scheme to solve the Jewish problem. The German method to exterminate the Jews was a ruthless one, and they accomplished this step by step according to a precise methods. Special units, so-called Einsatztruppen, were trained as executionaries. Their purpose was to surround an area for a so-called action, round up a certain category of people, and send them to concentration camps and others to extermination camps. Labor camps, concentration camps, and extermination camps were established around the country. The most notorious of them were Auschwitz, Birkenau, Majdanek, Treblinka, and Belzec near Lvov. 1,168 camps existed during the war. At the end of 1942, a ghetto was established in Lvov. All the Jews who were ordered to move into the ghetto, and the Yanovska concentration camp was established in Lvov as well. The Germans converted our technical high school into a center for training Aryan boys, thereafter to send them to Germany to work in the factories producing ammunition to the German armies. The Germans retained all the Jewish technical staff to train the Aryans at the technical high school. The condition for us teachers was bearable for the school year 1941-1942. However, at the end of the school year, we were told that we would be transferred to a labor camp. All of us realized that this was the beginning of our end. Everyone began to desperately to search for a way to either escape or to hide. As for myself, in the last minute, God's hand intervened. One of my students, who was close to my age, told me that he realizes how serious my condition was, and he offered me to help me. He gave me his Aryan documents, including his birth certificate, and told me to get a forged ID and thereby to save my life. However, I would have to leave Lvov, for two of us with the same name could not remain in the same city. I was overwhelmed and thanked him profusely. My name became Edward Varber. For a proper fee, I obtained a forged ID and decided to leave for Legionowo, a suburb of Warsaw, where a friend of mine lived at that time. I decided to go to a nearby suburb and from there by train to Warsaw. At Zimna was a Christian member of our staff whom I could trust, and I approached him asking if I could stay overnight. He realized that I must have Aryan documents and graciously welcomed me. At night, I had an unusual dream. My father, who passed away in 1932, appeared in my dream. Tearfully, I told him of my predicament and asked him for his blessings. My father replied, "Go in good health, and God would help you." I woke up, dressed quickly, and left toward the railroad station. At the station, I noticed a beautiful girl waiting for the same train. I engaged her in a conversation, and from her eyes I was able to detect that she too was trying to escape. I did not realize that from a distance someone was observing us. The train arrived and we boarded it. Soon after, a policeman came over to me asking for my documents. He took my documents and put them into his pocket. At the same time, I noticed that he approached a girl. I remained calm and joined a group of students who were bantering and having a good time. The policeman came over to our group and stood next to me. I took out some money from my pocket and discreetly put it into his pocket. Shortly afterward, he put my documents back into my pocket. At the next station, he together with the girl left the train. I realized immediately that my bribe saved me, but the poor girl was unable to escape. In Liganovo, I met my friend and we decided to move west, where his family lived. This area became part of the Third Reich, and we hoped that there would be safer than in the Warsaw area. This was only an illusion. Under the darkness of the night, we finally reached our destination. Shortly afterwards, the Jewish community in that area were ordered to move into a ghetto into a larger city. Realizing the uncertainty of my new environment, I decided to return to Lvov. After great risks and escapades, I reached Warsaw, and from there I took a train to Lvov. On my way to Lvov, I had a friend with me. Where we had to change the train, in Lublin. There I was apprehended, and my friend, and interrogated by the Gestapo. Suddenly, one of them hit with a whip over my head. I began to yell, "Jesus Christ, why are you hitting me?" They stopped and warned me that the next time I was caught transporting Jews from one town to another, they would kill me. I never again saw the friend who was at the station with me. In Lvov, I worked for a while at a German military base that repaired army equipment. During the day, I worked at this HaKP, Heereskraftfahrpark, and at night, I hid in the basement of the building where I lived prior to the war. This condition abruptly changed when someone at the military base betrayed me. I was arrested by the Gestapo and forcibly taken to the Janovska concentration camp. From there, I miraculously escaped and decided not to take any more risks and returned to hide in the basement. The building where I lived before the war now was occupied by the Gestapo and their families. The building was locked all of the time. The Ukrainian superintendent agreed to hide me in the basement. This was the safest place to hide. No one would ever expect that a Jew would hide in the same building where members of the Gestapo lived. When the Eastern Front was nearing to Lvov and the sirens warned of the approaching attack, the Germans used the basement as an air shelter. The basement was divided into cubicles which were used for the storage of coal for each apartment. They were separated with wooden boards. Very often I sat in the superintendent's cubicle, separated only by wooden boards from the German the next cubicle. When the air raids became more frequent, we had to build a bunker below the cubicle, to which I went as often as necessary. Once during an air raid, while seated in the superintendent's room opposite my hiding cubicle, the Germans came down very fast, so that I jumped quickly into a closet. When the air raid was over, one German came into the superintendent's room and put his chair in front of the closet that I occupied. I heard his conversation and even his breathing. I had to sit still, motionless, not to either sneeze or cough. The German anticipated another air raid and was not in a hurry to leave. In the meantime, I had an urge to relieve myself. The pain became excruciating. Then I recalled the morning prayer that I used to recite as a youngster in my home. Namely, the 18 blessing, the so-called Shmoneh Esrei, which I still remember. It began, "Open my lips, Lord, and my mouth will declare your praise." I slowly recited the entire prayer. When I completed it with the saying, He ordained the order of the universe will bring peace to us and all Israel, amen, the German finally left. After 8 months in the basement, I was liberated on June 22nd, 1944 by the Red Army. After liberation, I became aware of the magnitude of our destruction. All my dear ones had perished. Despair, anguish, and hopelessness filled my days after liberation. On May 20th, 1946, I arrived on the Marienfläche, the first boat to bring refugees after the war to the United States. Here I began my renewed life. I established myself in this blessed country of great opportunities. As a Holocaust survivor, I made 2 commitments to myself. Firstly, Zachor, remember. It is our obligation to remember what took place during this most tragic period in our history. This remembrance should not remain merely a footnote in history, but rather an ongoing process of education to create an awareness among all people about the unspeakable events that occurred during the Shoah. The established Holocaust museums, memorials, and educational institutions will preserve the memory of the Holocaust. Personally, I'm actively involved in supporting many of those institutions, especially Yad Vayelet, the museum that is dedicated to memorialize the 1.5 million children who tragically perished during the Shoah. It is the only museum whose objective is to educate school children at the age of 12 and older. In Israel and abroad, the museum portrays the heroic behavior of the children in the concentration camps and their dominant spirit that even the Germans could not destroy. Secondly, Chaim Nachman Bialik, in one of his beautiful poems, in Yeshet Nafshech Al-Dad, concluded it with the following saying, Uvmotam tzivu lanu et hachayim. In their death, they commanded us life. Those of us who remained alive have an obligation to those who perished during the Shoah, to bear witness to the atrocities who befell our 6 million martyrs, 1.5 million of whom were children. we also have a further obligation to renew life and to instill in our children the values of our heritage, thereby ensuring the continuity of our people. Personally, I'm happily married. Together we have raised 4 daughters, of which we have reason to be proud. I hope that in our time we will witness a fulfillment of the saying of Maimonides, Ano Ame gaat, de leven gaat, de gorale gaat. We want eternal people with one heart and one destiny. Thank you. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Rachel. In the Pirkei Avot, in the ethics of our fathers, we read, Ateret Zekeni B'nei Banim, V'tiferet Banim Avotam. The crown of the grandparents are their grandchildren, and the glory of the children are their parents. Rachel symbolizes this saying not only that she brings joy to her parents, but also pride to the entire family. Rachel was fortunate to attend the HaShoah school, and under the guidance of outstanding teachers, she gained knowledge about Judaism and its values. The HaShoah school can be proud of the students who have graduated this bastion of learning. Imbued with the treasures of our rich heritage, Rachel is equipped to withstand any attempt of assimilation in the future. She has the moral and spiritual strength to be a model for others. What distinguishes me tonight from all your parents and grandparents is that as a Holocaust survivor, I thank divine providence for having survived the inferno of the Shoah and having lived to see my own grandchildren. It is incumbent upon them to continue a legacy, namely with Am Yisrael, Torah Yisrael, Ve'eretz Yisrael, the eternity of our people, the learning of the Torah in the land of Israel. Now, Rachel.
When I was asked to speak here tonight, I was, of course, honored. I feel that it is not often enough that the third generation participates in events such as this, commemorating the Holocaust. I was asked why I had so willingly agreed to speak here, to which I honestly replied, I simply felt I could not refuse this opportunity. I thought about why I felt so compelled to address you. If it was because I'm Jewish, because I'm the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, or because of the absolute respect and love I have for my grandfather, my Saba. I feel personally affected by the Holocaust due to the horrors that my Saba and his family endured. As the third generation, we must accept the responsibilities of being the third generation. We must reassure our families that we will not forget. We will teach our children and our grandchildren and our peers these four to remember. I am more eager than others to learn all that I can about the Holocaust because I was brought up in a Jewish environment in which my Saba played an important role. For this, I am truly grateful. I am fortunate and proud to be a HaShoah graduate. HaShoah, as well as my family, has provided me with a strong Jewish education, including my past and the cruelties which the Jewish people have withstood. It is important that the Holocaust survivors tell their stories, because if we hide from the atrocities that were forced upon our people, we will surely forget. Saba, on behalf of the third generation, I promise to always remember.
In the nature of Jewish people, we remember with Peter Geffen, the founder of the HaShoah School.
Will you all please stand? El Mole Rachamim, Shochem V'Amoromim, Ametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanefei HaShekhinah, B'mahalot Kedoshim U'Tehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazehirim, Et Nishmahot Kol Acheinu B'nei Yisrael, Anashim, Nashim, V'tav, Shenitbechu, V'shenechneku, V'shenisrafu, V'shenergu, V'gan Eden Temenuchatam, Ana Balarachamim, Hastireim, V'seiter Kenafech Al Yolamim, Utzeror, Bitzror Achaim Et Nishmoteim, Adonai Hu Nachalatam, V'yanuchu V'shalom Mishkevoteim, V'nomar, Amen. Will you please join me in reciting Kaddish together? Yikadal v'yikadash Shmei Rabbah, Yalmad Yivrach v'yotei v'yamlich machletei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei l'chol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kariv v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach v'yolam v'yomei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yithaleh v'yithalal Shemei Kedusha B'refu. Elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Please be seated.
I feel we have commemorated in such a Jewish way by bearing witness and hearing your story, and by taking nachas from the education of and wonderful witness of this young woman, and of course also in prayer, which will be led by Peter. I would like to thank the Ungar and Moser families for participating in this event. And we're not going to have questions and answers, but they will be available for discussion later on when we're reviewing some of the art in the back. I would just also like to remind you that for those of you who have not done so, you may want to record your participation in this evening's Book of Remembrance in the lobby. And also take note of the special photo archive, which we inaugurated this evening, which I think is over there, which was started by Marilyn. And this archive will be a permanent collection of the Heschel School, safekeeping the memory of generations of our family for all time. And it's photographs of grandchildren, grandparents of our school. Finally, this evening's reception features the art of Israeli children and students of the Heschel School. This joint exhibition is the result of the collaboration of the school and Yad V'Yeled. Stephen Mead, a Heschel parent, and a Heschel parent of 2 graduates. We're thrilled to have him to talk about this project. And of course, I just want to, I'm sure all of you know, that the Mead family has been in the forefront of both Holocaust commemoration and education throughout the world. So I would like to invite Steve up to give us a brief background behind the special exhibition and collaboration.
First, I just want to add my thanks to Dina, to all those who participated this evening and put this program together and made this happen every year. That this is a part of the Heschel community, that this is a part of the Heschel calendar, I think that's not mine, that this is a part of the Heschel tradition is something very, very special about our school here. And I also want to say special thanks to all 3 generations of the Ungar Moser family for their heart, for their courage, and for their eloquence and with sharing all of that with us this evening. I have a special affection for Bill and Jerry Ungar. I think of them as among my parents' absolutely closest friends and comrades in arms who have, through many, many decades, have been part of the struggle when it was a struggle, and part of the effort when it went from struggle to effort, and part of the tradition of keeping the memory alive, but not just keeping it alive, but transforming it into something that has its own life and can go on to the next generation and the generation thereafter. And for all the work that you've put in through the years and for all the stuff you've done together with my family, I thank you. I was asked to say a few words. You didn't ask me to cross out the word just, so I was asked to say a few words about Yad V'Yeled and its special relationship to the Heschel School. This commemoration program brings together 2 institutions that, for both my wife Rita and for myself, are organizations that we have participated with for many years and have cherished for many years. The first is, of course, the Heschel School. As Dina indicated, our involvement goes back a long way. We actually, I think that my fingerprints are on some of the early 1984 documents for this school, which is way, way back. And we've had children in the school since 1987, with 1 year off for good behavior. And Lord willing, we will have children, grandchild here for quite a while to come. We've always cherished Heschel's sense of community and its commitment to something broader than just the narrow concept of Jewish education. We've always cherished how Heschel tried to widen the scope of what Jewish education was to be considered, and what, by a sort of extension, we wish to impart to our children, and what we wish them to share, take on, and give on to their children's children, and that has, again, its own life and goes on from generation to generation to generation. The second organization is the Ghetto Fighters Kibbutz, Beit Lochamei Gedot. I'll turn your attention, if you haven't looked at it, there is somewhere in this program a page which does a fairly good blurb on both the Ghetto Fighters Kibbutz and Yad LaYeled, which I'm also going to get to in a paragraph or two. The Ghetto Fighters Kibbutz was founded by survivors of the Holocaust, including friends of Bill's and friends of my parents, people who actually did fight and were active in the resistance. 50 years ago, 1949, they founded at the kibbutz what became Beit Lochamei Gedot, the Ghetto Fighters House. But this was to be from the very beginning more than a static memorial, more than just a monument and a statue and a list of names. It was to always be, again, something alive. And it has grown into a museum and a resource and a documentation center. But most importantly, it has grown into its own school, its own educational process institution. I lack the right word here. Not only for people in Israel, but for people throughout the world. And to some degree, unlike Yad Vashem or the U.S. Holocaust Memorial or the New York Holocaust Museum, it has chosen as its mission not so much only to memorialize the loss and to document the loss, but to document and celebrate the life and the resistance during the Nazi era and before the Nazi era. And resistance, as I'll get to, can be defined in many ways. My own involvement with Beit Lochamei Gedot goes back to 1970, when I translated, painfully I'll admit, from the Yiddish to the English, my mother's war memoirs. They had been published in 1948 in Yiddish, and they were published by Lochamei Gedot. So in the end, they're the people who paid for my first car. The book on both sides of the ghetto wall has been republished several times, and was, when it was first published, the very first documentation in the first person of the resistance to the Nazi era, and the first eyewitness account of the lives and the deaths of the ghetto fighters. Beit Lochamei Gedot has always been a source of documentation, archiving, and training of teachers, especially, as I said, about the resistance. The concentration on how the people lived, as Bill expressed this evening, what he spoke about so eloquently. And you hear the tragedy sort of behind it, but he explained just what it took to live through that time. And the documentation of this is as important as listing what was lost in that time. 14 years ago, Beit Lochamei Gedot started the Teachers Project, which is near and dear to you, in particular to me, since my mother's the director of it. And by now, this program, which takes high school teachers from all across America, not only from Jewish schools, from all kinds of schools. My eldest daughter is a social studies teacher from Stuyvesant, had been through the program already. Has trained now 600 American high school students from Iowa and Nebraska and Manhattan. And in turn, these 600 alumni have, by my calculation, reached, I did some quick numbers here, 60,000 students a year, and have reached by now some 210,000 young people with training and trained observation and knowledge about how to impart some memory and some understanding of the Holocaust, especially to a world that it did not grow up with, the American people as a whole. Yad LaYeled itself was created in 1995 as a children's museum and memorial designed for young visitors. I'm quoting from the textbook here. Young visitors between the ages of 9 and 15. Now, to give you an idea of the importance of this, I hope by now almost everybody in this room has had a chance to be through the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. We went down with Jonathan approximately a week ago. Jonathan is in the second grade here. And while we did take him through the entire exhibit, I don't think that Jonathan, at the level of a 7 to 8-year-old, really could understand and take in the large exhibit. What Jonathan could take in was that part that's called Daniel's story, which was also intended for children 9 to 15 years of age and is on the ground floor. And if you're going to be in Washington, let me give a plug that you do take your children or your grandchildren through that exhibit and perhaps do both. And what was important to me thinking about it is this is the level that Jonathan can absorb. And as other groups of Americans wandered through in front of us and behind us and around us, I realized this is the level that young people can absorb. And you have to reach people at a level that they can take it in. Yad Layelid, on a much larger scale, is a whole museum designed, as that Daniel story is, to allowing children to understand, it's not children, to allowing young people at their own level to understand the Holocaust and in its parts, in its exhibits, and then in the art program that's associated with it, to be able to find some kind of language to express what they feel. And this is going to be important because these young people's affectiveness or affectation, whatever the right word is, about the Holocaust is what they will carry over to the next generation, to their children and their children's children. In the next room, we see the product of HaShoah's collaboration with Yad Layelid. Yad Layelid does a number of outreach programs, and one model was what is called the book sharing project, which was done between HaShoah and, I forget the name of the school, it's written down somewhere, Ironi Gimel in Haifa. And the idea was that in both schools, young people would read the same book, discuss it, and then using the internet, share their experiences and their thoughts. The book is published in both English and in Hebrew, and so you could have this twin school relationship. And after that, these young people in the first wave of this, when they did do the senior trip to Israel, they had a chance to go to Yad Layelid and to Beit Lochamei art. And their art, together with the art of 4th graders and 6th graders, so the art that we have in the next room is HaShoah 4th graders, 6th graders, and 8th graders, expresses their response to what they've learned, what they've experienced, and what they've felt. And in contrast, we have on the near wall the art of Israeli children. And you see it as sort of a dialogue between the American experience and the Israeli experience. And that is one of the gifts of Yad Layelid, that it is there to teach the children, to teach the teachers, and to prepare for the next generation and the generation after that. I hope you enjoy the rest of the evening.